Listen today as we continue our discussion on neuroplasticity and why it's so important. Despite what many people believe, you are never too old to learn new things. Your brain is an amazing creation of God and has the ability to help you transform your life. What if the last third of your life could be your most productive and happy?
Welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast, a place where Christian single women age 50 plus connect. I am your host, Janine Jordan, a Christian confidence coach and leadership mentor in Alberta, Canada.
And I'm your co-host, Ellie McCormick, a Christian longevity coach and mentor in the USA. Being single women over 50, we know what it's like to feel overlooked, to have unrealized dreams, to experience the challenges of singlehood, and to be concerned about what our future will look like. We couldn't find anything online for single Christian women over 50, so we created Jesus People Sisterhood just for you, a place where sisters encourage and empower one another through the last third of life, because you are a treasure trove of wisdom and of exceedingly great value. This is an authentic community, a supportive family, with other women on the same journey where Jesus is the center of it all. Here you will find real talk, real community, and real sisters.
Join us as we discuss building relationships, whole health, and growing spiritually. We'll review helpful books and articles, chat with guest speakers, share success stories, and have some laughs along the way. So grab your favorite beverage and we'll get started. Hello and welcome to the Jesus People Sisterhood podcast. In this episode, we'll be continuing our discussion on neuroplasticity and brain science. This is part 2. If you haven't listened to part 1, which was our interview with author Doreen Steenland, please listen to that episode first, and then come back and listen to this one. Understanding brain science and our brain's plasticity can transform our lives. For that reason, we wanted to continue discussing this topic more in depth. What were your takeaways from our interview with Doreen, Kelly?
I did take notes. So the first thing I have is when she talked about not being victims, that we tend to live on autopilot and feel that life is happening to us instead of for us. And I think a lot of us can relate to that. And her realization that in her own life of seeing she was a people pleaser and she had these behaviors and she was racing through life, that learning about neuroplasticity, she could change the way her life was going. She did have power over it. She wasn't a victim of her life, of what was happening around her. And she was saying how we have more control over our thoughts, habits, and actions, and we should not give our power away, which is what we're doing when we just let life happen to us. The phrase that came into my mind was, we need to show up for our life. We need to show up for our life and take control and stop kind of just zoning out, something like that. We're just like not engaged, right? We're not intentional. We're not engaged.
Right.
And the other thing she said it was related is that a lot of what happens in our life is our history happening over and over again. It's just with different faces and different places. And we never change these patterns that we've been stuck in since teenagers. We respond the same way. We just do everything the same way. And so we're not overcoming our faults and flaws and wrong thinking. We just keep repeating those patterns over and over again. You have to intentionally decide to make a change, because our brains are kind of like whatever pathway you've created in your brain. It always takes the easiest route, and we will just keep repeating it until we intentionally decide to change that. What about you?
Great takeaway. Yeah, I think you're right. Well, the one that resonated with me was connecting with Jesus before you react. When we find ourselves in situations, we can become emotional and we can, lash out in the same patterns that we had before and get the same result. But if you make a cognizant effort to connect with Jesus before you make that response, that she calls it witness as a witness. I think that was the one that really was the best takeaway for me. I tend to be a rather emotional person, and I think that taking that moment to connect and getting the power and the strength from the Lord to give a perhaps more proper response or a more thought out response is a wonderful takeaway for me.
I really like that too. I wrote that down. The idea that when you are with, you're spending this time with Jesus, and from that, whatever you do, people can tell. It's going to be a witness. You're going to be different.
Mhm.
I really like that too. And to keep it in mind, something to repeat to yourself
Right.
throughout the
Right.
day of how to handle life, right?
Exactly.
Witness with Jesus is going to be a witness.
Good words.
The other one that I thought was really could be powerful is writing your obituary. And Doreen shared how she thought about what her obituary, what would people say about her at the end of her life. And they could say she was a good golfer. What was the other one? She was a good golfer and she was a nurse, which
Right.
are nice things. There wasn't anything wrong with it, but she really wanted people to say she impacted people's lives for Jesus. And I would totally agree with that because there's nothing wrong with being a golfer or being a nurse. And I mean, you can impact a lot of people's lives as a nurse. You could as a golfer too, I suppose, in some ways. But I think the bottom line is you would want to be known as having impacted people's lives for Jesus. That's why we're here. That's why we're alive.
No, that's great. I agree. I agree fully. That was a good part of that interview as well. And I think it just leads us to really just say, no, sisters, and this is us included. We're not saying that we don't have areas to work on, things we don't need to do. We're all in that work in progress, but really it's time to wake up. You don't want to stay stuck in your rut and not finish the race strong. You don't want to slide into heaven or meet Jesus with not having pursued and done everything that he has for you. And I think it's so important. You have this one life, it's running out, it's running, time marches on. And the choice is yours. You can choose to stay where you are and just say, no, I'm good. And there's not really much more that I want to do or could do. And all you're going to do is just sit there and deteriorate because it's that use it or lose it mentality that you have to
Right.
take on.
Right.
Your brain is aging, your cognitive abilities are deteriorating. You're deteriorating. You're not going to stop the aging. You are going to get older. And it's right here and it's right now. And unless you purposely start pursuing a healthy brain and having a healthy brain and a healthy lifestyle, it's going to come back to bite you. And you may have some regrets, and that's not where you want to be. You want to be happy and have a purpose and realize that you can still attain these new goals and new things, new thought patterns.
Right. I mean, you can change your life. And I think it's
Hmm.
important to realize you cannot be the ostrich with their head in the sand because
Agreed.
your brain is aging. It is use it or lose it. It is, you need to take action. Even to stay, okay, let's say you just wanted to stay where you are. You have to take some kind of action
Right.
because your body is aging. There's nothing you can do about it. As far as you will get old, you will age, you can do something about it as far as how healthy you age and how fast it is
Right.
and what the end of your life is going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
So, how can you have a healthy brain and start transforming your life? The question of the hour. It
Yeah.
says start with a vision. That's the first thing to do is think about like the idea of the obituary. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? How do you see the end of your life? If you envision what is the end of my life, what would you like to see the last third of your life look like? And then it's important to realize that what we look at is where we go and what we become. What we look at is what we become. It's the direction we head towards. There's a beautiful verse, 2 Corinthians 3:18, that says, "And we all, with unveiled face, beholding the glory of the Lord, are being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. For this comes from the Lord who is the Spirit." It's what we look at, what we behold is what we head towards. Think of what you want your obituary to say, what legacy you want to leave, and begin with that end in mind.
Right. Yeah, I can think of an example from my own life. I rode horses for quite a lot of time, and I remember when I was learning to jump, the advice from my instructor was don't just prepare for the obstacle in front of you, set your horse on the course, but actually in the air as you're turning, as you're looking to the next obstacle in front of you in that path that you're going, that you need to be preparing for your path ahead, preparing for the next thing that's coming along. So set that goal, walk that course in your mind. Think of where you're starting off and where you're going and start preparing. Now is the time to do it. You have today. Today is where you can start a brand new you. Set that goal, put yourself in motion, start moving forward.
Yeah. If you're doing that, if you're jumping, go over one jump and you go over the next jump. If you did just focus on that one jump in front of you instead of where you were going after that, was it more likely that the horse would miss the jump?
Well, it was certainly maybe not miss the jump, but you wouldn't be prepared for the next thing that was going to happen.
Mhm.
And if you're looking down and you're looking at the jump and you're only looking at the next few feet in front of you and you don't see something that could be happening down the path, then you're just not prepared for it. So it's like driving. I think you brought up that example before, rather than just making a turn and not looking ahead. In driver's manuals, they talk all about be setting your sights on the things in front of you so that you can see things coming up. So scan with your eyes up ahead, the corners, are you looking from side to side? Are you aware? And setting your course by being intentional.
Right. Supposed to look at the horizon. If you look to your left, you'll start turning to the left. If you look to the right, right? If you're driving down a straight way, but you start to notice something on the side of the road there, and then you look back, you'll notice that you've started to veer to whatever direction you were looking because you will turn and go toward wherever you're looking. So
Exactly.
it's the same thing, same principle.
Mhm.
So it's important about what are we looking at, where we want to go, and then looking at where we want to go. If we don't have any picture in our mind, then we aren't going to go anywhere.
Right, exactly. If we start to talk about how to have a healthy brain and some things that we can do to start doing that and to maintain and to build a healthy brain, then we can talk about a list of things that are practical that you can do right now. The majority of these things are free or can be done really inexpensively. And according to brain science research, here's the list. The first thing on there is to exercise and to move your body. Aim for 30 minutes of moderate exercise a day. That is just it's so refreshing just to do that, moving your body, which means that you are feeling so much better in your brain and in your body after a little bit of exercise. And if you can just do small bits every day and then build up, certainly something everybody can do. And there's not a particular type of exercise, only that it's a moderate exercise.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's a lot of things on this list that we're talking about them as being health for your healthy brain, but they're just for a healthy life.
Right.
Exercise seems like the healthy cure-all for so much and so many things.
Right. And there's ways to make it enjoyable. Like you have to find the thing that works for you.
Right. Doing it with a friend,
Right.
starting out small so that in small increments so that it doesn't seem like such a chore.
With music. Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So healthy diet. We can talk about healthy diet too. So with that exercise, healthy diet, and you have to consult with your doctor and you have to do what's best for you. But at our age, I think that we understand that there's some things that we need to incorporate into our diet.
Hmm. Hmm.
And there's some things maybe we have to take out. So,
Right. And I know that they have, I mean, you can get recipe books for what to feed a healthy brain. I know that they talk about healthy fats, things like avocados and nuts and certain oils
mhm,
that are really good, like feeds the brain.
yeah, just a little bit of research out there. Fish, I know salmon, right? Those sort of things, all good for you. And sleep. Sleep something else here on the list, Ellie. Yeah, getting the appropriate amount of sleep, uninterrupted and healthy sleep, right?
Yeah, your brain needs that time. It's this time when it's processing while we're sleeping, all the things that happen during the day. And that's why it's so important. And a lot of us don't have that. It kind of goes back. I don't really want to go into it here, but what we're doing before we go to sleep really
Right.
affects the quality of our sleep. So one of the things is that we all struggle with as we get older is memory, and sleep is really important for memory because the brain takes the things from short-term memory that happened that day and processes it and decides, okay, this is going to go in our long-term memory to be remembered. But if it doesn't have that high quality sleep or enough sleep, it doesn't make it to long-term memory.
Right.
And it's not able to process all the things that have happened, whatever you've learned, whatever, all those kind of things. Then, of course, then you're going to sense it. You're going to be aging more quickly and you're going to notice that you can't remember things.
Well, mindfulness is next on the list. And I know you have some things to say about mindfulness. So what about that?
Yeah, some people, Christians, have trouble with that word. It's just what they're really saying, and I can't speak if somebody's a new ager, but is this time where you are usually, I think of spending time with the Lord, having conversations with the Lord, having a quiet time, whether you could go sit out in nature and just think and be at peace. For me, it's always talking with the Lord, whatever it is. Maybe go on a quiet walk through the woods, something like that. A time when you are in the moment and finding a peace. And it wouldn't be maybe something where you're crying out to God, because then that's not a peaceful thing. But it's a like a conversation, communion with the Lord that's bringing peace to your day. So that would
Mhm.
be the mindfulness. And it can actually be all the time as far as like trying to be present in the moment of your life.
Well, games is something that I'm familiar with with my teaching experience. I mean, games always improve mood, set up some competition, and it helped people to be positive about the learning, positive about doing new things, acquiring new knowledge and skills, and it just excites us and it keeps us engaged and focused and on task. There's a number of games that you can play. Find the one that interests you, and you can even make a game of exercise, right? You challenge your friend to some sort of a how many minutes can you do a day, or what can you do here, and how did you improve this? And so games can be a wonderful way to improve your brain health.
Hmm. So a lot of people, what they try and do, they'll do crossword puzzles and
Mhm.
Sudoku and those kind of what they consider brain games. I think there was even an app that my son used to do that was all these kind of like brain games. And they're not sure how much that helps you. They believe that it does help your brain somewhat, but they really not sure how much it helps you. But it certainly can't hurt. And they do know that as long as you're learning and you're using your brain, this is something that you or your brain is involved in. You have to think. It's again not this autopilot thing that
Right.
it's going to be helpful. So trying to find things that are requiring your brain to be a little bit challenged is the idea here with games.
Mhm. Well, we have dancing and I think specifically memorized movements. So it's not just getting up there and shaking, but more that you are doing something that requires your brain and your body to work together, which they do, but in a memorized movement. So you're repeating a pattern, and that seems to be something that helps your brain.
Yeah, and I think that the reason they came up with this, I believe, is kind of through studies where they found that dancers who danced because they memorized dance routines, or they did dances. Like there was some video that's been going around for years now of this older couple swing dancing, just that is healthy and it staves off Alzheimer's and dementia. And I can't say for certain, but that's what they believe, right?
Mhm.
That's what they have found. That's probably the best exercise. The thing that they found is significant in their studies is people who dance, and it's dancing where it's memorized movement. It's dancing where you have to move a certain way, not just shaking your body.
Right.
Although I guess that would still be good for you because it'd be exercise. But in this case, it's this using your mind to tell your body what to do specifically,
Right.
which makes me think if you did an aerobic routine,
Mhm.
aerobic exercise that required you're supposed to do step up, move this way, whatever the different movements that are memorized because it's a routine, that would have similar benefits. Or cheerleading, or I don't know that any of us are cheerleading, but I guess they could be. And things like that, where there's a memorized physical routine, the way that you're moving your body is very
Square
healthy.
dancing, line dancing, those sort of things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Acquisition of a new language. I think both of us, we spoke in depth this morning a little bit about that and how we've so enjoyed learning languages. And that's something Ellie and I have in common for sure. Just a few years ago, So in my early 50s, I was taking French lessons, and I was surprised at the fact that I'd taken French before in school for some of my grade 10, 11, and 12. But how interesting it was to come back and revisit that and see that you can actually make some progress. It was interesting getting, a tutor, and interesting just doing the exercises. But what a really wonderful experience it was, and how much a great stress reliever too, as a matter of fact. I just enjoyed it, and I know that we can do that. Acquiring a new language just lays down a new network of learning, right? So we're acquiring something and we can use it, and it helps build up our self-esteem, because you can have so many interactions using that, and so many ways that that can add some joy and happiness to your life.
Yeah. Like I am on Duolingo now. I'm inspired to get back to it because I haven't been doing it probably for a couple of years now. Several languages, and that's free. You can do that for
Mhm.
free. And you can actually, if you get a friend to do it, you can be friends on there and follow each other.
Right.
You can learn another language for free.
Right. It just adds to the value of your life, just what you
Right.
can do and people you can meet. Yeah. Learning to play an instrument. I think, again, we both have this love of music, and I'm sure there's many people out there that do. And taking up an instrument at different ages in life, just because you didn't learn it, when your mom taught piano lessons, now is the time for you to get out there and pick up a new instrument. The joy that music brings can enrich your life so much. Maybe you play an instrument for a while and it's not the right one for you, but then you can move on to learning something new. There's so many free lessons online with YouTube. Perhaps even in your community, there may be people that get together to play music, and that can certainly be a real fun time. Or you choir, or join something in your church community as well.
Right. I think the big thing is that you're learning something new.
Hmm.
And both with learning an instrument and learning a language is it's not just book learning.
Right.
It's requiring your body to do something, to speak or to hear or to write or to strum or to
Right.
hit the keys or whatever, because
Right.
so it's not just in the mind. It's
Right.
something where the mind and the body connected, which actually, kind of relates to that whole dance movements, right?
Right.
Dancing with memorized movements. There's something about that really makes the brain grow and keeps it healthy.
Hmm.
And it's not even about whether you learn to speak a language very well or you play an instrument very well. It's just the process of learning that is
Hmm.
so healthy.
Right.
The mastery or the improving it, those things is just the icing on the cake.
Right, exactly. Well, and social interaction comes into play with that, with the acquisition of new language and learning to play a new instrument. It can lead directly into you coming out of your cave, so to speak, and, having some interaction with others. And often as we age, we pull back and we're not so interested in the outside world as much. We have that attitude of we've seen it, done it, been there. But there is so much to learn still. And social interaction, keeping yourself engaged in actually speaking with others and being interested in something outside of yourself. Really, I think it adds to your brain working better and you being more happy, more satisfied, and able to serve and use your talents and gifts that often we think we've sort of run out of at our age, right?
And social interaction, that's right up there. I'd say probably the two most important things on this list would be exercise and social interaction. So go back to listen to our episode 2, episode 3 and 4, ladies, Jesus people, sisterhood, groups. It's so important to be having fellowship, to be interacting with one another, to be doing life with other people. It is so healthy and it's how God made us.
Right.
If we aren't doing that, it really does affect our brains, affect our life.
Mhm. It's good to have accountability. It's good to have other people speak into your life. And you're not, as much as we have this acquired wisdom as well, it's good to get input from other people and learn new things.
hmm Just want to encourage all those introverts. I'm an introvert. It's easier for us just to be by ourselves. Don't do
Mm.
that because it's not going to get easier. It's going to get harder if you stay by yourself. Get yourself out there. You can just start with small steps. Call one
Mhm.
friend, make a commitment to start spending time with people.
Right. And before you know it, you may be traveling to see that other person, right? Traveling's on the list too. Ellie and I think we've talked before. We've never met, but we we talk every day, and we have plans to travel to meet each other. Traveling can be a great way to stimulate your brain and stimulate activity there, and having a new environment, having to process new thoughts, new ways of looking at things is really good for our brain's health.
Hmm. Hmm. As far as like being expensive
Mm,
or if you're a homebody that doesn't like to travel, you can still go maybe not too far from home.
right.
It doesn't cost very much money. And again, the baby step in of I'll just go 5 miles from my house to a park, or I'll just go
Mhm.
50 miles to go visit some attraction. Yeah.
Well, positive thoughts and speech, taking each thought captive, I'm sure we're all aware of 2 Corinthians 10:5. That's just so true. To really think about how we talk to ourselves, our self-talk, how we perceive the world. Do we have negative thoughts and speech? What exactly is our lens on our worldview? Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it and indulge it will eat its fruit and bear the consequences of their words." So, where are you with your positivity scale or your negativity scale?
Right. Because what we think is going to come out of what we say, or I should say, what we say comes out of what we think, right?
Right.
And what we feel, our emotions, so much of what we think affects everything else about our lives. So in the brain science, they find that obviously powerful, positive thoughts and positive words make a healthy brain and you have more connections. If you have negative thoughts and negative words, then you have things die off and it becomes unhealthy in your brain and it becomes unhealthy in your body because your brain is running your whole body, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
They've also found what you say, they can show how it biologically, how it affects your muscles and everything. There was a video I saw recently where a woman was standing and she had her arms up on her sides, like straight out, right? And then a man was put his hands on her arm and he said, okay, so you're just thinking a regular thought. And he pushes on it and her arms don't go down. But then he said, okay, now I want you to think of something negative or sad. And as soon as he pushed on her arms, they went right down,
Mhm.
which was this showing how negative thoughts affect your strength, affect your muscles, affect you biologically, affect you physically.
Mhm.
So it really has so much power. And of course, God told us that, right?
That's
There
right.
is power in that. We aren't supposed to be thinking all these negative thoughts, which we tend to have as older women. We tend to start thinking the worst or at least not the best for our lives.
That's right. You're absolutely right. It's a terrible thing to be held captive by those negative things that we say.
Right.
Ellie and I have set little goals for ourselves, and we'll be sharing with you in episodes to come what sort of things that we're working on. We think that if we're gonna talk the talk, we ought to walk the talk too. I think we'll report back to you on some of the little goals that we're working on as you're working on yours, sister, because we're here to encourage you. We are not prima donnas. We're just ladies, who are trying to do the best that we can, just like you are. And so we just want you to be encouraged. We want to do life with you. And we want to show you that we are not just sitting here telling people what to do. We
Mhm.
are giving some suggestions and we are learning and growing as well. One thing we can say is choose one area to focus on. Start making small steps in that area. And soon you will be celebrating successes and feeling empowered. And that's what we all need to do.
Yes. The most important thing is that you consider the things that we've talked about today and start today. So just choose one thing and
One thing.
okay, what am I going to do? Tomorrow I'm going to do this.
Mhm.
And it can be the easiest one for you.
Okay.
I think that's all we've got for today. I hope all of you ladies take to heart what we shared. We want to see our community of sisters just living really full lives, strong to the end, impacting others. And that when we do have our obituary, we leave a wonderful, fantastic legacy of a life lived fully for Jesus. Each one of us can do that, fulfill that calling that he has on our lives. Okay, so ladies, join the JPS Community Facebook group. Please share any thoughts that resonated with you from today's podcast episode in our private Facebook community. Start reaching out to other single women and create your local group of Jesus People Sisters. And please let us know about your group, and we will start a directory of Jesus People Sisterhood groups. You can contact us at support at JesusPeoplesSisterhood.com.
Have you had a good experience with the business? They've treated you honestly and helped you at a reasonable price? Please let us know. We'd like to start a directory of JPS-friendly businesses to direct you to. Let's care for one another.
That's all we have for today, sisters. Be blessed by him who is able to protect you from stumbling and to make you stand in the presence of his glory, blameless and with great joy. Blessings till next time. Hey, sister, before you go, thank you for listening. If you found value in today's podcast, the best way to say thank you is by leaving a 5-star written review at Apple Podcasts. That raises us in the rankings and helps other sisters find us too. And please tell a friend or post it on your social media. If you're a single Christian woman over 50, this podcast was created specifically for you. The Jesus People Sisterhood is your community to find support and friendship with other sisters who can understand. Be sure to follow us on your podcast app and join our free private Facebook group at Jesus People Sisterhood Community.
Jesus People Sisterhood has also started a private Facebook group for housing and co-living opportunities. You can check that out at Jesus People Sisterhood Senior Housing. You can also find us on Facebook at Jesus People Sisterhood and individually for Janine at riseupcoachingandconsulting.com and for Ellie at samaramountain.com. And ladies, this is the necessary disclaimer. Our podcast content is for informational purposes and does not constitute professional advice from mental health, medical, legal, financial, or other areas. The opinions of the guest do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host. It is our heart that this podcast will be a blessing to you. Together, let's build a powerful sisterhood with Jesus. Make a friend, add a sister, across the border and around the world.